Oxford editions of cuneiform texts edited under the direction of S. Langdon, Professor of Assyriology, the Weld Blundell Collection, Volume 2. Of the 23 kings of Kish, who reigned after the flood, all but 2 are preserved, with the exception of the 5th and 6th names, which are partially preserved. The lengths of their reigns are naturally mythical, and the huge total of 24,510 years 3 months and 3 days, is probably due to an astronomical calculation of the so-called world year, or period of 25,920 years, of the sun's apparent revolution through the 12 signs of the zodiac, the precession of the equinoxes, or slow motion of the Earth's axis, in consequence of which the intersection of the equator with the ecliptic, travels along the latter at the rate of 1 degree in 72 years, causes this apparent revolution of the sun. It is difficult to discover any similar computation in the figures given for the pre-Diluvian period. The 66 sars of years, or 241,200 years, assigned to this period by W.B. 444 corresponds roughly to 12 world years. The 120 sars of Berosus and the 126 2/3 sars of W.B. 62 correspond roughly to 24 world years, and this may conceivably be the original calculation. In the foregoing table I have subjected the actual figures of the prism to severe reduction anterior to the date of the beginning of the Second Kingdom of 3357, which is reached by dead reckoning, assuming that Kabor was contemporary with the exact kingdom, and allowing for some obvious mathematical inaccuracies. If we accept the actual figures of the prism, the first king after the flood ruled 34,685 BC. The first ruler of Ir began to reign 10,175 BC. The second kingdom of Kish began in 7,332 and Harmasi seized the hegemony in 4137 BC. It is impossible to give credence to these figures, at any rate before 4137 for Harmasi, and I have assigned dates to the period before 3357 entirely on grounds of epigraphy and archaeology. If we allow for the omission of the last 2 kings before the flood by accepting the figures on W.B. 62, and add 64,800 for these 2 kings, the prism, W.B. 444, places the first ruler of mankind 340.685 BC. W.B. 62 would yield 490,685 for the beginning of mankind, and Berosus's figures would be 466,685 BC. Are these figures mere tradition, or is the early Sumerian civilization to be assigned to such remote periods before 10,000 BC? Chinese and Indian tradition used the figures of Berosus for the prehistoric age of man. From a Chinese source of the 8th century AD, Edward Chavan cites a passage which assigns 432,000 years to the age of the 13 kings of heaven and the 11 kings of earth. The Indian period Kelm-Yuga corresponds exactly to the figures of Berosus. See Ed. Chavan, Les Mémoires Historiques de Saint Martien, Volume 1, page 18. The reference I owe to Professor Soothill. At any rate, we now know that, by consensus of all their traditions, the Sumerians believed the flood to have occurred about 35,000 BC, and that great kingdoms flourished long before 6,000 BC. The Hindu notion is that great cosmic age lasted 12,000 divine years, a divine year being 360 human years, which gives 4,320,000 human years. This was divided into 4 cycles: Yuga, the Krita, Treta, Vipara and Kil cycles, in the proportion 4,3,2,1, 1,440,000, 1,080,700 and 20,360,000. The Ktu age consisted of unblemished righteousness, the Tretu age of 3/4 righteousness, the Dvapara age of 1/2 righteousness, and the Kli Yuga of only 1/4 righteousness. Each age began and ended in a twilight period containing as many hundreds of divine years as the age of thousands. Hence the Kli Yuga, or age of discord has 36,000 plus 360,000 plus 36,000 equals 432,000 human years. It is difficult to understand how this can have any connection with the Sumerian system and the 432,000 years of the antediluvian period. Okay, these are the accepted world dates. 432,000 years of the antediluvian period, the Ice Age. 1. For the beginning of mankind, 490,685 to 466,685 BC. Minus 125,685 years of the Golden Age, the Men of Gold. 2. Places the first ruler of mankind 340,685 BC. 305,685 years of the Silver Age, the Men of Silver. 3. Flood to have occurred about 35,000 BC. 4. The first king after the flood ruled 34,685 BC. Current age of iron 32,661 years, the Men of Iron. Dates of the cities. 1. First dynasty of Kish, circa 5500 BC. 2. First dynasty of Ir, circa 4600 BC. 3. First dynasty of Ur, circa 4100 BC. 4. Awan, circa 3900 BC. 5. Second dynasty of Kish, circa 3750 BC. 6. Harmasi, circa 3560 BC. 7. Second dynasty of Ir, circa 3450 BC. 8. Second dynasty of Ur, 3357-3250 BC. 9. Adab, 3249-3160 BC. 10. Ma, 3159-3024 BC. 11. Third dynasty of Kishikugbor, BC. 12. Uksak, contemporary with Kugbor, 3023-2931 BC. 13. Fourth dynasty of Kish, 2930-2834 BC. 14. Third dynasty of Ir, 2833-2809 BC. 15. Agade, 2808-2628 BC.